Today, we have a very special list for you, the 20 most watched Turkish series of the last 15 years. These are the productions that stopped the world, emptied streets, and kept millions of people glued to their screens, unable to stop watching. From the most intense revenge stories to the most passionate romances, here are the series that changed Turkish television forever. But before we start the video, it would help me enormously if you took a moment to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for your kind support. Number 20. As time goes by. Picture yourself as the perfect wife of the 1960s, raising 4 children while your husband sails the seas. Then he finally comes home, and everything you thought was solid turns out to be built on sand. As time goes by, takes us to 1967, Istanbul, where the Akarsu family falls apart after ship captain Ali returns home a completely different man. What should have been a joyful reunion becomes the beginning of years of pain that pull every member of the family into its orbit. This show does something most family dramas avoid. It lets you watch the children grow up in the middle of the chaos, making bad decisions, learning things no young person should have to learn. The period setting feels authentic, and the performances carry real emotional weight. The honest criticism here is that the pacing drags in certain stretches, and the foreign mistress storyline gets repeated one too many times before it resolves. Still, if you enjoy family dramas with genuine emotional depth, this one stays with you. It is easy to understand why productions like this made Turkish television a global phenomenon. Number 19. Captivated. This is the story of a man who has everything working against him from the very first episode. His father, a good and respected man in the neighborhood, gets wrongfully convicted of murder, and Mahir, his son, decides he is not going to wait for a broken system to fix itself. Captivated unfolds in the Istanbul of the 1970s, and that setting gives the whole show a remarkable visual texture. Mahir creates a false identity, infiltrates the courts, and along the way falls in love with the very judge handling his father's case. Yes, exactly that. The series weaves the love story together with the fight for justice in a way that actually works, because both keep pulling against each other right until the end. The honest note here is that with 115 episodes, the second season has stretches where the plot circles before it moves forward. But the chemistry between the leads and the intensity of the period setting more than make up for it. A production that shows just how well Turkish dramas can blend justice, love, and crime into something genuinely compelling. Number 18. Fatmagul. This series is not easy to watch, and it is not supposed to be. Fatmagul opens with a scene that shakes you immediately. A young village woman is brutally assaulted by a group of wealthy young men, and instead of receiving justice, the system forces her to marry one of those involved. What makes this show more than just a drama is the way it develops Fatmagul as a character. It does not keep her as a permanent victim. It shows her getting up, questioning, fighting back. And Karim, the man she is forced to marry, also evolves in ways you genuinely do not see coming from the start. The performances here are among the best you will find in Turkish television. That said, there are episodes where the story moves very slowly, and certain supporting characters feel like they exist only to stretch the runtime. But the emotional impact of this show is powerful enough that those issues fade into the background. It is one of the few series that generates genuine debate about issues that still hurt in many societies. A production that stays with you long after it ends. Number 17. 1001 Nights. This is the series that opened the door to Turkish telenovelas in Latin America, and if you watch it today, you understand exactly why it had that effect. 1001 Nights draws you in immediately with a premise that feels impossibly unfair. A desperate woman, a sick child who needs an expensive operation, and a boss who puts an unthinkable condition on the money she needs. What begins as a cold, transactional agreement between Scheherazade and owner slowly becomes something far more complicated and far harder to untangle than either of them expected. The chemistry between the leads, who actually became a real couple off-screen, gives every scene an extra tension that you can genuinely feel. It is worth noting that the series has episodes where the story circles unnecessarily before moving forward, particularly in the 3rd season. But if you want to understand what hooked millions of people on Turkish productions, this is your answer. A story that blends pride, love, and guilt in ways that feel completely real. Number 16. Early Bird. Some series grab you because they are intense, others grab you because they are completely charming. Early Bird falls firmly into the second category, and it makes no apologies for it. The story follows Sanam, a young dreamer who lands a job at an advertising agency and there crosses paths with Can, an adventurous photographer who turns out to be one of the company's owners. What makes this romantic comedy special is not just the undeniable chemistry between the leads, but the way it builds its characters beyond the surface. Sanam has her own dreams that have nothing to do with him, and you feel that throughout. That said, with 51 episodes, there are moments where the misunderstandings drag longer than necessary, and you start losing patience with the back and forth. But when the series finds its rhythm, it is very hard to put down. It is one of those productions that stays with you after it ends. One of the most beloved romantic comedies in recent Turkish television history, and for good reason. Number 15. Forbidden Love. Few Turkish series have the visual elegance and dramatic depth of Forbidden Love. The story begins with a classic premise. Bitter, an ambitious young woman who marries a much older wealthy man in search of security. But when Behlul, the husband's nephew, enters the picture, everything Bitter has built starts crumbling from the inside. What makes this production so powerful is that nobody here is completely innocent. Every character has their reasons, their weaknesses, and their lies. And the series shows all of it with an honesty that makes you genuinely uncomfortable in the best possible way. The lead performances are outstanding, and there are scenes where more is communicated through a single look than through any line of dialogue. The fair criticism is that certain secondary storylines, particularly toward the end, dilute the focus of the main narrative. But Forbidden Love remains one of the most sophisticated and emotionally complex productions in Turkish television history. One of those series that shows the world Turkish dramas have nothing to be ashamed of. Number 14. Endless Love. Listen, there are very few series in Turkish television that have moved this many people for this long. The story follows Kemal, a middle-class young man who falls deeply in love with Nihan, a woman from a wealthy family. The problem is that everything, absolutely everything, works against that love from surviving. The families, the class differences, the secrets, and decisions that neither of them can undo. What makes this production special is how it develops that impossible love without making it feel absurd. It feels real, even when it is maddening. And it is in that desperation that audiences get trapped, episode after episode. The honest criticism is that there are moments, particularly in the second season, where the story circles in situations that feel like they are not moving anywhere. But when Endless Love is working, it is hard to find anything that matches it for emotional intensity. It won international awards and was distributed in over 100 countries. And there is a very clear reason for that. Number 13. High Society. This is the Turkish adaptation of the successful American series The OC, and what makes High Society interesting is that it does not simply copy. It takes the skeleton of the original story and fills it with something genuinely its own. Yaman is a kid from a poor neighborhood who ends up being taken in by a wealthy Istanbul family. And in that world that does not belong to him, he has to learn to move without losing who he is. The dynamic between him and Mira, the family's daughter, is the emotional core of the show, and it works because both characters have real things to work through beyond just falling in love. Serenay Sarıkaya, in one of her first leading roles, delivers a performance that gets your attention. The fair criticism is that the second season loses some of the momentum of the first, and certain plot turns feel rushed. But High Society remains one of the most entertaining dramatic comedies Turkish television has produced, a series that flows naturally and is genuinely easy to watch. Number 12. The Pit. If you are looking for a Turkish series with real action, complex characters, and a family story that keeps you glued to the screen, The Pit is exactly what you need. The series revolves around the Koçovalı family, which controls the dangerous Çukur neighborhood in Istanbul. When the leader falls, the brothers have to take over while enemies start closing in from every direction. What makes this production great is not just the action sequences, which are very well done, but how it develops each member of the family. Every one of them carries something personal, and that makes the quiet moments just as intense as the fights. With 131 episodes across 4 seasons, there are parts where the story gets more complicated than it needs to be, and certain characters come and go without fully landing. But The Pit has a particular energy that is hard to find elsewhere. It is one of the few Turkish series that proved action drama can be just as addictive as any romance. Number 11. Black and White Love. There is something about this series that hooks you from the start, even when you can see where it is going. Black and White Love follows Asim, a man involved in organized crime who works for a powerful mob family. His life changes when he meets Asu, a young, idealistic neurosurgeon who ends up witnessing something she was never supposed to see. To protect her, they have to get married. And that is where everything begins. The dynamic between the two leads is what makes this production work. They are opposing worlds that keep colliding, and that friction generates tension in every episode. The performances hold up, especially in moments where the characters have to carry scenes while saying almost nothing. The honest note here is that 30 episodes feel short for everything the story sets up, and certain conflicts get resolved faster than they should. But Black and White Love is one of those compact series that does not waste the time it has. If you have not seen it yet, it is well worth your time. Number 10. Intersection. This is one of those series that combines thriller with romance in a way that very few manage without one element crushing the other. Intersection follows Omer, a police officer investigating the mysterious death of his girlfriend, and Elif, a young woman from a wealthy family who loses her father under equally strange circumstances. Their paths cross in the middle of an investigation that goes much deeper than either of them expected. What makes this production work is the chemistry between the leads, which never feels forced, and the way the criminal plot maintains tension without losing sight of the characters' emotions. There are moments where the central mystery keeps you genuinely curious. The honest note is that some twists in the second season feel too abrupt, and there are subplots that never quite get resolved. But at 38 episodes, Intersection is one of those series you devour. One of the most exported in Turkish television history, and it earned that distinction on its own merits. Number 9. Istanbul Bride. This series manages to lay out something very few shows handle this clearly: the clash between who you are and who a family needs you to be. Istanbul Bride follows Soraya, an independent and modern singer from Istanbul who falls in love with Faruk, a man from a traditional and conservative family in Bursa. And when she steps into that family mansion, the real story begins. The mother-in-law Esma is one of the most complex characters in recent Turkish television. She is not simply the villain of the story. She has her own reasons, her own fears, and her own way of wanting what she wants. That makes the conflict between her and Soraya far richer than usual. The honest criticism is that at 89 episodes, the story stretches in the second and third seasons beyond what the plot can comfortably hold. But if you are looking for a series that realistically shows the clash between modernity and tradition within a Turkish family, Istanbul Bride does it better than almost anything else. Number 8. Kuzey Güney. Kuzey Güney is a Turkish drama centered on two completely opposite brothers. Kuzey, impulsive and passionate, and Güney, calculated and ambitious. Both fall in love with the same woman, and that turns their relationship as brothers into something far more complicated. The story blends family crime, betrayal, and romance in a way that hooks you from the first episode. It is one of those productions where the dynamic between the male characters is just as compelling as any love story. The cast delivers solid performances throughout. The pacing has its ups and downs between seasons, but the emotional core of the series holds firm. A production that deserves more international recognition than it has received. Number 7. Love for Rent. This is one of those romantic comedies that works even when you know exactly how it is going to end. Love for Rent follows Daphne, a young woman with serious debts who ends up agreeing to pose as the girlfriend of Omer, a successful shoe designer who needs someone to help him escape family pressure. The deal seems simple at first, but what starts as a performance turns into something neither of them expected. What makes this series work is that Daphne is not waiting to be rescued. She has her own personality, her own limits, and her own plans. And that makes the relationship feel far more balanced than most comedies in this genre. Baruch Arduç and Elçin Sangu have chemistry that is noticeable in every scene together. The criticism is that there are episodes in the second season where the story stretches with conflicts that no longer add much. But Love for Rent is one of the most exported and enjoyed Turkish comedies outside Turkey, and once you watch it, you understand completely why. Number 6. The Insider. This is one of those series where every episode ends at a point that forces you to start the next one, even when it is already late. The Insider follows Sarp, a young police officer who infiltrates organized crime to find his disappeared brother and dismantle the criminal organization from within. What makes this production special is the constant pressure the main character feels. He is trapped between two worlds, and any mistake can cost him everything. The series builds that tension very effectively, and the moments where Sarp has to make impossible decisions are the best in the entire story. The supporting cast is solid throughout, and the main antagonist has the kind of dark charisma that keeps you watching even when you know what he is doing. The fair criticism is that the ending of the second season rushes too much and leaves some questions unanswered. But at 40 episodes, The Insider stays efficient and entertaining from start to finish. One of the most beloved action series in Turkish television. Number 5. Game of Love. This series works with a premise we know well. A rich city boy who lands in a simple world and everything changes from there. Game of Love follows Ozan, the heir of one of Turkey's largest companies, who ends up in the countryside after a serious mistake costs him dearly in his city life. And there he meets Nazlı, a strong and independent young woman who is not intimidated by him at all. What makes this production interesting is that Ozan genuinely changes. This is not the classic arc where the wealthy character learns a 5-minute lesson and stays the same. The evolution is real and noticeable. And Nazlı does not wait around for him to become what she deserves. She already knows what she deserves. The chemistry between the leads works well, particularly in the second season when the story has found its rhythm. The honest criticism is that the first episode starts slowly and there are misunderstandings that could have been resolved much sooner. But Game of Love delivers exactly what it promises, and it does so with characters that feel genuinely likable. Number 4. Shattered. Imagine discovering that the child you raised your entire life is not actually yours, and that your real child is growing up in another family. That is the starting point of Shattered, and from there, the story never stops. The series follows two completely different families who discover their children were switched at birth in the hospital. And the chaos this creates is not just logistical, it is deeply emotional. Each family has to decide what to do with that truth and how to protect the children they now have to learn to love all over again. What makes Shattered special is that it does not take shortcuts with the emotions. It shows confusion, resentment, and love all mixed together in a way that feels real. The criticism is that at 91 episodes, there are seasons where the secondary conflicts become repetitive. But the core of the story always finds its way back. One of the most watched and exported productions in Turkish television history, and for very good reasons. Number 3. Magnificent Century. Very few productions in Turkish television history have achieved the global reach of Magnificent Century. The series tells the story of Sultan Süleyman the Magnificent, the most powerful ruler of the Ottoman Empire, and of Hürrem Sultan, the concubine who became his legitimate wife and one of the most influential women of her era. What makes this story fascinating is how it shows power working from the inside, the intrigues of the harem, the political alliances built and destroyed, and the decisions that shape the destiny of an entire empire. Hürrem is a character who divides opinion, and that is exactly what makes her magnetic. The visual production operates at a scale rarely seen in Turkish television. The costumes, settings, and music are at a cinematic level. The honest criticism is that 139 episodes is a lot, and there are seasons where the story stretches too long. But Magnificent Century changed what the world expected from a Turkish production, a series that deserves to be seen at least once. Number 2. Hırsayı. This series has everything: a revenge story that turns into love, two families locked in conflict over a past that neither of the young protagonists chose, and landscapes of southeastern Turkey that make every episode look like a film. Hırsayı follows Miran, a man raised to take revenge on Reyhan's family by marrying her and destroying her from within. But what was supposed to be a calculated plan becomes something neither of them can control. What makes this production powerful is that Reyhan is not just a victim of the plan. She has her own strength, her own pain, and her own decisions that define her as a character. The tension between the two builds intelligently from episode to episode. The fair criticism is that the third season loses some of what made the first two special, and certain plot twists feel forced. But Hırsayı has moments that rank among the most intense in recent Turkish television. A production that grabs you and does not let go easily. Number 1. Love is in the Air. Some series arrive at exactly the right moment and become a phenomenon that goes far beyond what anyone expected. Love is in the Air is exactly that. The story follows Ida, a young florist and architecture student, and Serkan, a successful and distant businessman who took away her university scholarship without a second thought. When fate puts them face to face, Ida proposes a deal. They pretend to be a couple for a period of time in exchange for getting back what she lost. And from that moment on, everything they thought they knew about themselves starts to be questioned. What made this series great was not just the undeniable chemistry between the leads, but the way every episode kept the audience waiting for the next. The series aired in over 100 countries and became one of the biggest television phenomena of recent years. The honest criticism is that some storylines in the second season get more complicated than necessary. But Love is in the Air is proof that a well-told romantic comedy can conquer the entire world. The number 1 spot on this list is completely deserved. And we have reached the end of this list of the 20 most watched Turkish series in recent history. Every single one of these productions left a mark that is still felt today. Tell us in the comments which one was your favorite or which of these shows you still have not seen yet and have on your list. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, share it with someone who also loves Turkish series, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.